Ready. Oh, that intro just gets me so pumped up. Welcome to BitBoy Crypto, home of the BitSquad, the largest crypto community in the entire interwebs. In fact, even the solar system. Take that, Mars. I'm your host, DZ. Welcome to Around the Blockchain. We are here Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern. Sometimes 5:05. I guess I'm Latte DZ today. It's okay. But you know what? We made it. We're here, and that's all that counts. We have a great show today. We're going to be talking about if Bitcoin can still hit $100,000. I think we can. It smells good. USDC going public, the company behind them. That's going to be some huge news. And also gigantic news out of Latin America. Huge, muy grande news out of Latin America. So let's get right to our guests here. We have Jebb taking it up in the top right corner with the top right little Bitcoin sign behind him. You got to love it. We also have Parys. Sometimes you catch him eating a baguette. Right now you're going to catch him talking about Bitcoin. And we also have CryptoBlood. The only blood that doesn't like red. Candles, that is. And, of course, we got Ben Armstrong taking it up. Everything's coming full circle, ending with him as he gives you the little salutations, that is. All right, so we're going to start things off with the market watch. It looks like Bitcoin, let's check the price right now, 32,899, trying to push back above 33. We're in this little support zone. It keeps bouncing back and forth. We don't know really where it's going to be heading. I mean, we're hoping up, obviously, but we seem to be stuck in this same little channel. ETH today also down about 10% at one point today. It wasn't the best day for the markets. BTC was down about 5%. And then we also saw KuCoin and Axie Infinity was doing some huge run-ups the last few days. It looks like they both pared down their gains. Both were down about 15, 20%. But I want to take it to you, Jebb. What is it that you're seeing on the charts that's possibly giving you hope or maybe a little market fatigue?
Yeah, so right now, DZ, we are seeing that Bitcoin and many of the major cryptocurrencies in this industry are moving sideways right now. We see that Bitcoin is in a symmetrical triangle pattern, which unfortunately for everybody who was long Bitcoin, broke bearish last night, and we're now currently trying to hold support around $32,500 or so. Unfortunately, if Bitcoin is not able to hold that level and continues through with what looks to be a bear flag right now, we could be pushing as low as $30,000, maybe even $28,000, $29,000, maybe $30,000 over the next couple of days. Ethereum doesn't look a lot better because Ethereum actually just broke bearish out of a rising wedge, which indicates that it could be pulling back several more percentage points as well. And Cardano doesn't look much better either. So everybody who is long in these markets probably isn't doing very well right now.
I know the ADA gang doesn't like that. And it looks like there was a little Fibonacci support level at 2,100 for Ethereum. So, you know, hopefully that'll hold. So we'll see in the long term. But that brings us to our first topic. Can Bitcoin still hit $100,000? We've seen some really, really good macroeconomic news lately. We discussed it a little bit on the morning stream. Visa is partnering with 50 cryptocurrency companies. We also have, Bank of America starting a new crypto research team. I mean, they're not going to invest in that unless they planned on, making some moves into crypto. But on the micro level, we had a strategist out of Bloomberg, you may have heard of them, giving some interesting indicators talking about Bitcoin, comparing it to the oil barrel volatility chart, and on a more larger time frame, basically the large equity markets, whether it's housing with oil, there's markets that run in tandem with them, sometimes in reverse. So it seems like as oil goes down, there's a lot of indicators saying Bitcoin goes up. So we'll see how that looks. Ben, I know you said your sources, are going to pump in early July, mid-July that was. If it doesn't pump, how late in the year would it be before you would start to worry? Would it be August? Would it be September? At what point would you say, you know what, it hasn't pumped yet, I'm starting to sweat a little?
Yeah, I would say mid-August. If we are not back up above $50,000 by mid-August, then you know what? We got to start planning for the worst case scenario here, which is we don't go back up. I don't buy into any of these baseless theories that, well, it's just going to be a longer market, even though we haven't really seen that before. That's all just speculation. There's nothing historical to back that up. So for me, I tend to believe that we are in just a very similar, pattern to what we saw in 2013, and that we saw a big drop in the middle of that market and then a recovery. And I think we're going to see that now. But I've been leaning a lot on some information sources that have been dead on almost on everything they've told me over the last, month, basically. And, they're telling me mid-July is when the big institutional players are going to send it back up. They're telling me to watch for the levels of $32,000 and $1,800. Not $32,000 for Bitcoin, $1,800 for Ethereum. Not that these are levels that, like, if we go below them, it means that we are, like, in hot water. But those are kind of the levels that have been defended against the people trying to dump the market and FUD the market. And when we say dump the market and FUD the market, literally what we're saying is shake retail sentiment. Like, that's what it is. They're trying to shake loose the Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano from these, from retail traders' hands so they can accumulate them all. And the plan is basically compete. There's a lot of things coming into play in the next 2 weeks, and I think probably by the 20th of July, we should be heading back up permanently. Well, not permanently, for a few more months, that is.
I like that date, and I'm going to come back to you in a little bit. But CryptoBlood, speaking of some of these indicators, some of these things that we've been seeing, do you think that a lot of this is just noise, basically trying to shake out the retail investors, or is there any basis when Bloomberg comes out with a report, if Goldman Sachs comes out with a report, are these just basically market analyzers giving their bosses oh, give me a bullish report or give me a bearish report, or do you think these are really something that we should look out for? What's your take on some of these larger institutions when they do research?
Bloomberg and the Goldman Sachs, they're all new to the game. We're the OGs. We tell them what's going on.
I like that.
No, but seriously, I think that I've been saying this on Ben every time I've come on the show, 20,000, we got to test it at some point. I can't give you a date because, that's like playing the lottery, man. I don't understand how these people come out with dates and price targets. That's just crazy to me. But I think we still need to flush out a lot of the retail investors, like Ben said. And to do that, I think we have to capitulate to 20,000. Now, do we hit 100,000? Absolutely. It was interesting, and I was shocked to see the correlation they tried to draw, the Bloomberg article, with crude oil having an inverse relationship with Bitcoin. I would think it would have a symmetrical relationship with Bitcoin, because if crude oil is going higher, that means that GDP and economic activity is, higher, and there's more of that. So I would think that those two would kind of fall in line with one another, because as we've seen, Bitcoin going up, it correlates pretty much with the equities market. So I don't see inverse. That's new to me. I've never seen that. I'm not with that one. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd never seen it before either. It was interesting to me.
Yeah, that was weird.
Yeah,
that was weird. But 100,000 for sure. But I don't know how you can say the end of the year. That would be amazing if we do. But we got to test $20,000 Bitcoin first.
Okay. Speaking of end of the year, I want to bring it to you, Joe. So we've talked about the stock to flow model plenty of times here. It's created by an anonymous person, goes by Plan B, or pseudonymous, I should say. And some of the targets that he was saying, he was saying 200, but then saying worst case scenario, 135,000 in December, and the worst case scenario for August was going to be 47,000. What is it that you are seeing with these numbers, Joe? Do you think the stock to flow is just done, or is 100,000 still on the table?
I think 100,000 for sure is definitely still on the table. And I just want to say thank you guys for having me back on the show. Really appreciate being here. And, it's palm trees and sunshine here, so life is good. But look, I think 100,000 is definitely coming. It's just when, right? And so looking at all of the models that Plan B has given us, I have no hesitation that it will come to be. Will it be right on the dot exactly as he calls it? No, that's like really difficult to do. But I do think that towards the end of the year, things exponentially go up. People forget about that, right? We're sitting here going, man, Bitcoin forever just won't go up, won't go up, won't go up. But when it decides to go up, it goes up, right? And so I definitely do think that if we're sitting around 50, 60, 70,000, all of a sudden you're going to wake up and it's going to be at 100, then it's going to be at 150, then it could go to 200. I mean, that's the truth. And so right at the end of when things really go parabolic, that is when you really want to be capturing those gains and also being aware that, hey, right now is the time to be accumulating, right? It's the time to be actually getting in here and, thinking about, all right, if we know, according to previous data, that in the long run of things, typically this is when things are going to happen, you should start preparing yourself for that. And again, nothing is ever perfect, but I still truly believe that we are on track still. And until anything changes drastically, stay the course, guys. Stay the course, and don't try to overthink yourself. Just keep at it, and Bitcoin can surprise us. It really can.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to you, Jebb, in a second, but I want to bring it back to Ben. As Joe said, nothing's perfect, okay? Nothing's perfect. We're out here trying. Now, you're saying mid-July, and I agree that's, it seems likely on the, the on-chain metrics, but there is a lot of Bitcoin about to hit the market. The Grayscale Bitcoin Trust has an unlocking July 16th, and I believe it was around 20,000 Bitcoin. 16,240 Bitcoin are going to hit the market. Now, you're saying the 20th. Is that kind of what you're seeing? Like it's going to dump the day of and then give it a few days to recover?
I mean, I'm just middle of the month, somewhere between the 10th and the 20th, I think is pretty safe. And then if you were to say the 20th, that kind of builds that in, that like if we get a correction on that, but I don't necessarily think we're going to. If you look at when a lot of those shares were bought, they're not in profit. And so I think there's not as much incentive for people to dump those as there would have been if the price was actually much higher. I mean, and when you look back, there is a correlation between these unlocks and dumps. When you look back at most of those unlocks, it was because the people were in profit at the time. So most of those were not bought in profit. They were bought, I think it was the end of January. So Bitcoin was actually about where it is now or higher, closer to 42,000, depending on exactly when, when the people bought. So there's also a theory that, because of the way that the shares work, that there will be some incentive for people to actually buy physical Bitcoin kind of to hedge against their own Grayscale shares. And so that's what some people are saying. It could actually encourage people to buy Bitcoin. And here's what we see. We see two battling narratives over which one is going to, is it going to be bearish or is it going to be bullish? And I think we're probably going to get somewhere in the middle. I don't think it's going to have a large impact one way or the other.
Okay, I like that. And speaking of the price impact, those who remember, Bitcoin's top kind of coincided with Coinbase's IPO, initial public offering, where they listed their stock for public sale. And that brings us to our next topic. USDC's company, Circle, which manages the Center Consortium, which owns and controls the stablecoin USDC. They're partnered with Coinbase, a lot of the larger institutions. And I was looking at it as I dove deep into that, and I was just shocked and almost pretty much appalled by what I found. And there you can see their market cap just escalating right there. They have a circulating supply like right around 26 billion. I think it's about a third of Tether. Circle, it was founded in 2013. Right now, they started with a seed fund raising where they raised $135 million starting in 2013. 50 million of that was from Goldman Sachs. So, we talk about it in the morning a lot. It's basically the same powers that be. It's nothing new. It's the same banks. It's the same hedge fund managers. It's the same people behind the curtains controlling USDC. Now, I want to bring it to you, Jebb. The Coinbase IPO, as we know, it coincided with the top. It looks like the IPO for USDC Circle, it looks like it's going to coincide around Q4. Do you see any narrative there where they'll have an incentive to push the price up? Do you think it's related? Do you think it's not related? Was that just a coincidence last time? What's your take on that?
Well, it's interesting because we saw when futures launched on CME, we saw that happened literally the day we hit $20,000 as the all-time high, and then the market jumped off a cliff. And then we saw Coinbase IPO, and then the market jumped off a cliff. So you got to ask yourself, are these big launches that are going mainstream being used as ways of manipulating the price into causing massive dumps? It's a valid question. I think someone in chat named Beachfront actually put it perfectly. It's not a question of when we hit 100,000. Excuse me. It's not a question of if we're going to hit $100,000. It's a question of when we're going to hit $100,000. That's for two reasons. Number one, the retail is getting value from Bitcoin. They buy into it because it is of tangible value to them. That's why we're seeing, as we're going to talk about in a second, Argentina potentially moving in the direction of Bitcoin. That's why we're seeing El Salvador do it. That's why we see the citizens of Venezuela and many other countries torn apart by inflation moving towards it. Bitcoin, its adoption is driven by retail, but it's also driven by these institutions. You know, there's this whole debate going on all the time. This is literally in the news every single week. Where are the institutions manipulating the market right now? We know there's manipulation going on. We know that there are powers that be trying to pull strings and move things around. But the thing you got to realize is that at some point the manipulation is pushing us to the downside. At some point is pushing us to the upside. The people that are manipulating the market, which doesn't make up all of the market activity, but does make up a good amount of it, they want to see the market jump off a cliff so they can buy low. But then they also want to see it rally so that, you know, they can turn a profit. They don't want it to stay low forever. The question is, what is USDC going to do in lining up with that? I couldn't tell you because I'm not one of the market manipulators. You know, I joke that I have my team of whales and they go and dump the price, whatever, because so I have something to talk about, but it's not true. Yeah. You know, I don't know when exactly or if exactly there's going to be a massive dump, but what I do know is that the powers that be want as much of the control of USDC and of Bitcoin as they possibly can, and they also want to make sure that Bitcoin is low now so they can buy it and goes up in the future so that they can sell it. I think a lot of these institutions realize the future is Bitcoin, and if they miss out now, they're going to get screwed over, and that's why they tried to bring the price down so they can buy it in lower so they have more power in the future, and we should be doing the same thing while Bitcoin's on discount.
Yeah, and
it's buy.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it's buy the rumor, sell the news, people.
Yep.
So, you know, the price will lead up to that event when they actually go IPO, they go public. And then it'll sell off right then after. That's just what markets do. So I think that's what will happen in that case. But the real thing about this whole situation is that they're retaining 86% of the new company that's going public at $1 billion valuation. They're the ones winning. Circle, the private individuals that own Circle are winning in this scenario. It has nothing to do with crypto in this one, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I was looking at some of their metrics. It looks like, you know, with their IPO, they have to file a lot of paperwork. They have to give a lot of their plans and where they see themselves, you know, company-wise. So we looked at the graphic earlier. They're at 26 billion USDC. They're projecting by 2023, 190. So we're looking at an 8x essentially. So there's the graphic right there. So they're saying the amount of USDC is going to 8x by 2023. Now, I want to bring it to you, Joe. Do you see USDC like surpassing Tether, or is this all like, is this part of the coordinated effort to push Tether down? You know, is there any merit to like going against the grain here? How does it make you feel about Tether?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for Tether, for the longest time, it's just always had kind of a bad name to it. And, you know, USDC, I think people are starting to warm up more and more to it. It's
on that real quick, do you think that was fake? I mean, do you think that all the FUD of Tether is just a coordinated effort of dispelling, you know, misinformation? Or do you think there's some merit to some of the fear we've had surrounding Tether?
I mean, I think that there's a case for both, right? I think that there is some legitimate fear that like, okay, hey, look, Tether wasn't exactly super truthful in every situation, right? I think that there is some real behind the scenes things that are happening that not everyone is aware of. And, you know, there was probably some shady things happening. I definitely do think that there is merit for that. And because of that, it's allowed new stable coins to come in like USDC, like GUSD, like some of these other ones to really take some market share here. And from a user perspective, you know, because a lot of the retail are going to be using this, you kind of want to be able to diversify a little bit, right? If Tether is just your only option and something goes wrong with Tether, you're at an increased risk, right? But now if you have USDC, and now if you have all these other stable coins to choose from, BUSD, whatever it might be, that as a user is going to give you a lot more flexibility, and it's going to allow you to take some risk off the table, even in something that's pegged to $1, right? So I do think that there is some real issues with Tether. I think that, yes, we have debunked a lot of them, but I still think that there potentially might be some things behind the scenes that not everybody knows what for sure has happened and is going to happen. And I think that the more transparency that we're getting with USDC and everything that's happening with that, I do think it gives the feeling of, hey, look, we can trust this a little bit more. I'm more willing to trade my dollars for now USDC. I can do things with that with DeFi. I can earn yield, and I don't have to worry about something happening with Tether, because I've heard about that in the news, because a lot of people are just unfortunately uninformed, right? And they watch some YouTube video of somebody saying, oh, well, Tether's a scam, and it's like, well, it maybe, it may not be, but for the most part we believe that it's kind of debunked that. So that's my kind of take on this.
Yeah, I mean, as content creators, we know, like, if you had two videos, one said Tether is a scam and one said Tether is trustworthy, one is going to have 10x the views as the other, and obviously people want to click on the scam. Now, Ben, I see you squirming over there. I know you're like a tea kettle ready to explode. I know you have those hot takes. I know the second I said Goldman Sachs, I saw the steam coming out of your ears like a Looney Tunes cartoon. So with USDC, 12.5 billion of it is locked up in DeFi. I know it's the banks, if they are going to go into DeFi, they're going to use USDC. Now, does Goldman Sachs and all these large institutions being behind USDC actually make you a little more bullish for USDC, since, the powers that be are supporting it? Or are you just saying, you know what, no, we have to support Tether as the stable coin for the people? How do you feel on that?
Well, I'd like to phone a friend. I'd like to phone Richard Hart and bring him on to talk about this. He's coming off the top ropes. Here he comes, broadcasting from Dracula's basement. That's what somebody said in the chat.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. That is so funny.
Accurate. That's definitely very accurate.
A lot of Richard comments today in the chat. So, well, in all seriousness, though, Tether definitely is not the stable coin of the people, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of sketchy stuff with the beginnings of Tether. There's no doubt about it. But, equating the current state of Tether to something that's, nefarious is like comparing the current state of Bitcoin to what it was during Silk Road. And it's just not the same. It's not relevant. Yes, that was a sketchy, black mark on Bitcoin's history, a black eye on Bitcoin's history. But when it comes to today for Tether, it's got a black eye on it as well, because in the beginning, none of us actually think they had the assets or reserves back in the beginning. But guess what? They do now. So New York has already said they don't care what they do going forward. They've already judged them for their past. It is what it is. But what I want to say here, I want to get back to my main talking point around this. Guess what is circulating in the news today? Okay.
What's that?
Circle IPO, Tether FUD. Do you see the relationship?
So you're saying it's not a coincidence?
Well, who owns the crypto media? Digital Currency Group. Who owns a big piece of Circle? Digital Currency Group. Guess the next big FUD narrative. It's coming from who? Grayscale, owned by Digital Currency Group. We got a big video coming out for you guys from Digital Currency Group on next week, and let me tell you, it is going to be hot. I may have to be worrying about my safety after this one, so we'll have to see what happens. But we're calling people.
I was going to say, Ben, you're the Alex Jones of crypto, baby.
Well, listen, I got these frogs, okay? I don't want to tell you.
And they're turning
Ben
gay.
Armstrong, okay? It's time to rip my shirt off.
Well, Blood, you're the one smoking the cigar there, Blood. So I mean, maybe you're the crypto Alex Jones.
I got there's some silver in this water here. It's going to cure you. But listen, I mean, look, it is the crypto cartel is what that is. It is the crypto mafia, Digital Currency Group. They are running things. We don't like it. We're going to call it out. We're going to continue to be the voice of the people on this channel. But the fact is, yeah, you should be bullish on USDC because there's nothing you can do to stop them.
All right. Well, I mean, you heard it here first. Keep an eye out for that. And Crypto, I'm going to bring it to you on this next topic. Looks like we have some huge news out of Latin America, and we haven't seen the markets pump like previously with this Latin American news, but I think this time might be a little bit different. So we've had two of the largest GDPs of all of Spanish-speaking Latin America. So we're saying the whole Western hemisphere of the globe. It's Argentina and it's Mexico. And I was looking at just some numbers on their GDP. The GDP for El Salvador is only 27 billion. The GDP for Mexico, 1.25 trillion. The GDP for Argentina, almost 500 trillion. So for Mexico's case, we're looking at a GDP that is 50 times larger. I mean, we can't undersell like how of a big of an impact that's going to be when we're not talking about 50 cents turned into $25. You know, we're talking about large lump sums of money here. So I want to bring it to you, Blood. When the El Salvador news broke, I think, you know, I'm not alone in thinking, oh my God, this is some of the biggest Bitcoin news that has ever happened. And for those who don't know, El Salvador is going to adopt Bitcoin as an official currency. But when that news hit the markets, it hit with a whimper. It did not hit with a bang. Do you think that because of the GDP size, there's any kind of chance for maybe this time, maybe the markets will react? What do you see if these laws do actually end up happening? Do you see a pump coming, or is it just going to be more of the same?
Well, I don't know if we know the details of the law. Hell, the law could be to ban Bitcoin. I don't know what the law is, but let's say it's favorable. I think it'll definitely be bullish for Bitcoin in the long run. Those types of laws, like even with El Salvador, it's a lagging effect. It's going to take some time before we see the actual impact from a price perspective with Bitcoin. So, you know, the El Salvador piece may take a year or more to play out to actually see manifest in Bitcoin's price, in my opinion, as people start actually using it and there's a demand built there. So I think it may take some time either direction. But one thing I want to say about this Mexico thing is that I don't think Mexico is actually going to be able to do a move like El Salvador, because they're part of, as many of you know, it's not NAFTA anymore. I think it's USMCA, the United States, Mexico, Canadian or Canada agreement. Mm-hmm. So I don't see them really going outside of that scope, right? Going against the US and Canada and being very Bitcoin friendly. I think they're going to double check that. They're not going to go forward with being very Bitcoin friendly, in my opinion.
No, I think there's some merit to that. And just for a little background on the laws being proposed, in Argentina, there's a law going to be proposed that will allow, it'll make employers where they have to be able to offer cryptocurrencies as a payment. A little background on Argentina, they have about 50% inflation. I mean, I don't want to say they're close to a failed state, but I mean, you can't have 50% inflation for long and then, you know, have it bode well. And the Mexico law is just basically submitting a Bitcoin proposal let me look here. It was a congresswoman from Mendoza, and she was presenting the bill. Just basically, it's a Bitcoin law proposal going to be brought forward in this a week-long retreat for their politicians. So we'll see how that plays out.
Argentina before Mexico.
Yeah, it'll definitely be Argentina. I agree with that. Jebb, I want to ask you real quick. It appears that the dominoes are starting to fall. Do you see this escalating outside of Latin America, or is this just basically like a South America, Central America narrative?
So, look, hype moves at the speed of light. FOMO and FUD moves at the speed of light. Fundamentals move at the speed of sound. It still moves quick, but nowhere near as fast as hype. What do I mean by that?
I love that.
When we see hype and FOMO and FUD come into the space, what do we see? Boom, price rallies 100% in a month. It's not sustainable. You don't want to base your diet off of a bunch of sugar that's going to give you energy for the next 2 minutes, and then you're going to have a massive crash. You're not going to have any energy. You know, there's this whole thing about keeping your blood sugar imbalance that we're messing with. This is an interesting analogy, but you get my point. What we want to do is we want to feed ourselves, feed the price of Bitcoin, not off of sugar that's going to give us a ton of energy for 5 minutes and then crash us a second later, but we want to feed it off of long-term fundamentals. Is this an isolated event in Latin America? No, absolutely not, because inflation is not an isolated event. Inflation and hyperinflation, like Argentina is seeing right now, 50% a year, I don't care how you slice it, is hyperinflation. You can't build an economy off of that. It is an innate problem in human society right now. Why? Because every sovereign country except for El Salvador now has a currency that is backed by nothing and based on Nothing. And so all countries struggle with inflation. All countries will eventually get to the point where they have to deal with this kind of inflation. El Salvador saw it. Argentina is going to see it, and they're moving in that direction. Many other nations in South America are seeing it. Venezuela, whether they want to believe it or not, their people see it. Mexico, whether they are in USMCA or NAFTA or anything, they are going to see it. This is not an isolated event to South America and Latin America. This is an event that is isolated to nations that have an unstable currency, which, by the way, how many countries are there? -1 for El Salvador. There's a lot of market share out there. When we see El Salvador moving into Bitcoin and crypto, that's not a flash in the pan moment where you just eat a brownie and you're on cloud 9 for the next 5 minutes. That is sustained growth. You're not going to see massive price appreciation because of something like that. I don't care if 26 million or 7 million people, I think, live in El Salvador came online all at the same time. That is long-term fundamentals. It's much more stable. It's what we want to build a foundation on. We don't want to build a foundation on news that comes and goes and is transient. That's what the fiat currencies that we're trying to get away from do. They build their value on nothing. We want to build our value on strong fundamentals. Entire countries adopting it is just that. So one, is this an isolated event to Latin America? Absolutely not. It might be for now, but it's not going to stay that way. I think we're going to start seeing the exact same thing happening in Africa, happening in Southeast Asia, and then from there we will probably see it start moving into Eastern Europe. Then we might start see it coming into the rest of North America, Western Europe, Australia, and Oceania. So first of all, no, it's not isolated to Latin America. It might be for the next couple of years as the dominoes start to fall. And number two, these are the kind of stories that I'm really interested in as a long-term hodler. We can trade all day based off of an Elon Musk tweet, but you want to be investing based off of nations and what they are doing and how people are getting involved in this technology.
I love it. And Joe, preach it, baby. Joe, your last name's Parys, so I'm assuming you're a man of international mystery. Now, what is it about? Is it so? It seems to be localized in the Latin America, and I agree with Jebb that it will spread out. But what is it about Latin America that's keeping it almost centralized in that area? Is it their remittances? Because they have so many people working in America sending out money. Is it just because they're tired of Western Union? What is it that makes it different than say a poorer Asian country or a country in another continent? Like what makes Latin America unique in that regard?
Well, first off, funny enough, my last name is, yes, Parys with a Y, but I'm not French at all. I'm actually half Polish and half German. So
thank God, we wouldn't have let you on the show.
Oh, gosh, no Frenchies.
No, but to answer the question, I definitely do think that, inflation, I think there is the issue, right? And Jebb really talked about that. And I do think that, yes, there is inflation in other places. But specifically, I do think it's been more of a problem there. And I think because of that, they're going to be quicker to actually do something and to adopt. And maybe it's just a mindset with their culture as well, because it's a really big paradigm shift to adopt Bitcoin, right? To actually say this is legal tender, this is what we're going to use. And a lot of other countries, whether, wherever they're at in the world, they have different paradigms. They have different ways of thinking. And I think that Argentina and some of these other places here in South America, they have maybe a more forward way of thinking, and they're willing to take the risk, right? I think that, a lot of them, 50% inflation, like we've been saying, like, what do we have to lose at this point, right? Let's give it a whirl. Let's give it a try. And, there's a really good quote in the movie Margin Call. The guy says that, there's 3 ways to win at this, right? Be first, be the smartest, or cheat, right? And he says, we don't cheat. Right. And so if you can be the first, there's a lot of real utility in that. And so definitely something that I think that they're thinking about. And if you're one of the first to adopt it and be one of the first there to, make it happen, I think there's a lot of attention that is going to be coming for that. I mean, think about these countries now. They're in the news. They have more press. People are using it. It's like, well, that's cool. Maybe I want to go there. Maybe I want to try that. I've seen so many YouTube videos now with all these different countries in South America. There's so much more buzz and talk and hype about that. And so it's exciting. It's good for them. And yeah, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, YouTube's trying to suck me down that rabbit hole too. It's like walking, Bolivia's craziest beach, and I got kidnapped in an alley, like all types. I watched one video, now I'm getting sucked into the vortex. Now, you're talking about luck and cheating. I'm going to quote Ben's favorite movie, Titanic, and quote Billy Zane, I make my own luck by cheating. And I want to bring it back to you, Ben. Is this, all right, so we were saying, 100K looks like a pretty good target. if Argentina fast tracks their law similar to El Salvador, where everybody can get paid in Bitcoin, would you revise your target? I mean, would that like reassess, like, oh my God, this is actually starting to happen. They have a lot larger GDP than El Salvador. Would you push it up to 200K, 300K, 500K, 1 million? Where would you see it if that did happen? 10 billion coin? What would you see?
$1 million. Listen, here's the truth. The absolute truth of it is, we do not know the connection in price to adoption from a country. We don't know what that looks like. We can't just say like, oh, well, you know what, El Salvador adopted Bitcoin. Well, now it's going to $1 million. Like, we don't know. I actually think what's probably going to happen is they're going to start using it and realize, well, dang, I just paid $700 for a taco or some chips. They're going to be like, wow, this is worth more down the road. And I think this is actually going to strengthen the argument.
I know that extra avocado gets a little expensive, but yeah, I mean, the $50 avocado, I'm going to get a little upset at that.
Shopping at Whole Foods or something? Like,
yeah, no, shopping on the future Bitcoin price. That's what we're doing.
There you go.
So the fact is that we don't know what that is. I think this is actually going to kind of backfire against the people that want to think that Bitcoin's going to be a currency. The appreciation is its number one value. We know that. We've seen it over years. Nobody wants to spend it. You got people back in the day on the Silk Road. I saw some people in the chat. I never used the Silk Road, by the way. But I got in around the time when everybody was getting in doing that, but I was actually using Bitcoin to pay for a software is how I got into it. But you got horror stories out there of people that paid 30 Bitcoin for a sack of mushrooms. Like, you think those people are kicking themselves?
Don't talk about Arcane Bear like that when he's not here.
I didn't say that. Okay. So listen, I don't know what the connection is. I don't know what it's going to see. Argentina right now is a train wreck. Has been a train wreck for a long time. It is on a fast track towards Venezuela. Could they do something? They put the Argentinian government, they need an uprising and an overthrow, which I'm not up to date on the current geopolitics of Argentina, so maybe there's something like that going on. But I know about 2 years ago when things were getting hot with Bitcoin in Argentina, they actually put capital controls in the country, so you couldn't even send money outside of Argentina more than $10,000 to try to keep the money there. So I don't think like Argentina adopting Bitcoin is going to be any bigger or less news than El Salvador, Paraguay, or any of these countries that are talking about it. Mexico would be absolutely huge news because their government and economy is not totally wrecked right now. It is it's a first world country. I believe Mexico for sure is a first world country. So, I don't know where Argentina is, but the hyperinflation has definitely caused it to go back in the rankings for sure. They do got a great soccer team though. But what I would say on all that, the last thing is, speaking of, I think Jebb missed one big thing when he was talking about his locations, his geography for where he thinks Bitcoin is going. Don't forget about the Middle East. The Middle East is right there with Africa and South America. South America right now leading, Africa behind, Middle East right there as well. So look for a lot of stuff happening there with the Middle East. And if you didn't know, speaking of countries adopting Bitcoin, adopting crypto, right now as we speak, the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors are meeting in, I think, in Vienna right now. So you got to understand, if you got central bank governors over there and you've got finance ministers, they are definitely talking about crypto. This meeting was actually yesterday. It started. I don't know how many days it goes on. I think it goes on a few days. Nobody's really been reporting on this, but expect big news in the coming days from that.
Oh, I could definitely see that. And I want to end it with you, CryptoBlood. Looks like we're about running out of time. Speaking back of Mexico, I kind of agree with you that, yeah, it's very, very unlikely, with them being part of that North American trade agreement, that they would just full-blown, like, ditch the peso, jump to Bitcoin. But half of Mexican citizens don't have access to banking. Could you see maybe not so much a currency replacement? Could you see them becoming more and more friendly as time goes on? Because, like I said earlier, they're really big into using Western Union, which charges their customers a lot of fees. Can you see like more of maybe a stable coin, a stable peso, staso? I don't know whatever they want to call it. Would you see them moving more friendly in that direction versus just full blown Bitcoin adoption?
Sure. Yeah, I've said for many years that the biggest cryptocurrency in the future is going to be a stable coin. So that's what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be their own stablecoin or maybe USDC. We may see that. So there's definitely, I agree with Ben. Like, Bitcoin is not it's not going to be used as a currency. You can use Bitcoin as a currency, of course, but it's not going to be used as a currency. Infrastructurally, it's just not there. So yeah, stablecoin will be the solution, in my opinion, that will, basically increase the adoption of cryptocurrencies.
Yeah,
in those types of environments.
Yeah, that looks like about all the time we have for it. I will say this: if they do adopt an official peso, they could call it the what peso, or in Spanish, K peso, or just call it queso. And with that cheesy joke, I'm going to end with Ben. Ben, it looks like you're our winner. You won your own show, pumping the fist, baby, beating up the beat. We're going to give you 30 seconds to talk about whatever bring it back full circle to you once again. Let us know what we need to hear.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we had a great follow-up show today to having Richard on yesterday. And look, I want to say I like Richard. Richard is a little, maybe abrasive might be a good way to say it. I don't know the right word. He's very controversial, but, we got some flack for some people, from some people for having him on. We got praise from other people from having him on. And the fact is, we want to have an open forum for debate. And that's what this show is all about. We all come here with different opinions and different perspectives, and you get the well-rounded view. So for all of the people that said we didn't give Hex a chance and we don't cover it, we had Richard come on here. We gave him some, questions from the community. Aaron from Altcoin Daily did a great job with those. And Richard, he talked a lot after those questions, and some people were satisfied with the answer, some people weren't. But we want people to know we're for lifting the crypto space up in general. We're not trying to hoard all the attention wealth here. We want everybody to get their turn at the mic. So I appreciate everybody watching the show, and I appreciate everybody who's on. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Joe, Jebb, and CryptoBlood. And DZ's doing a great job, I think. So good job, DZ.
Hey, appreciate it. And that's all we got time for today. Make sure you smash that like, and that DZ out. Have a good one, BitSquad.